Note. Today is our last session about Shabbat, and we are going to finish that. We might even finish ahead of time, and then we will talk a little bit about what's going on in Israel. But first, I want to really finish up with Shabbat. So let me just share the screen. Okay. I want to remind everyone that we talked until now, we talked about preparations for Shabbat. Then we talked about, going to synagogue on Friday night. We talked about Shabbat dinner, how that looks. We talked about Oneg Shabbat, like having Shabbat as a meaningful day of rest where we nurture our spirit. We talked about the morning services and how they are special, including the special sermon of the Rabbi, the Torah reading, and the special Shabbatot throughout the year. And today, we want to talk a little bit about Shabbat lunch, Suda Shlishit, which is the third meal on Shabbat, and the Mincha. Okay? So after the services on Shabbat, there is a Kiddush. Kiddush after services is very important. It sounds a little bit funny, right? Because, like Jews were in the synagogues for 2-3 hours and they're all over the food, right? It's like you see, I was in Park Avenue Synagogue, the richest, the finest of New York City in Manhattan in the Upper East Side. And you just put a bagel and, and simple tuna salad, and they're all over, it's like pushing, and everyone is like, they could buy the whole synagogue, but, so you have the thing there. So it's like, but we need to remember that usually you're not supposed to eat before you pray in Judaism. So when you wake up on a regular day, and you you could drink coffee or something like that, but you can't have a significant meal. So on a regular day, you wake up, you go to synagogue, you pray for 20-30 minutes the most, okay, and you're back home, you're eating your breakfast, and you go to work. But on Shabbat, you wake up, services might start later, might start at 8, 9 o'clock, depend. And if you're not supposed to eat until after services, and services are much longer because there's a sermon, so you definitely become more hungry. And with Orthodox Jews that are more observant and they really pay attention to that part, so they'll be really hungry. So that's why it is important to have a kiddush. So many synagogues have that embedded in their in their morning service. They don't do it in the evening service. That's sort of like the practice usually. Then comes the lunch. Okay, the lunch has a specific food that is eaten on Shabbat lunch. It's not eaten Friday night, and it's not eaten on the third meal of Shabbat, and that's the chont or chamin. And there are different different ethnicities in Judaism that call it in different names, chaminados, different, the Sephardi have a different name. There are different ways of making the chont, which is basically beans and meat and, how do you say grisim? Pearls, okay? Barley pearls, yeah. And all these things, sometimes they're all made together, just like you see here in this picture, okay? And sometimes in other, this is like Ashkenazi, the Sephardim do it each in a separate cooking bag, okay? And it's something that you put it before Shabbat, you put it on the blech, on the heating plate, okay? You might boil it up first, and then you put it on this plate where it's like slow cooking for the entire Shabbat. So it starts, let's say Shabbat starts at 5 o'clock. It starts 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday, and you eat it then, let's say at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, it was on the blecht, warming up and cooking overnight. So you wake up, the whole house smells, you want to eat it. It's very hard to keep, to hold the temptation. But it's a very traditional food. Almost every, Jewish, home has that. At one point, especially, it's the winter time, because, in wintertime it warms you up. Maybe here in California it's more rare, but in New York and Jerusalem and these places, they have that for sure. Now, this is not a new thing. The chont, the chamin, is something that is documented already to the times of the Talmud, and it's also part of a religious practice, almost, or not almost. I mean, some rabbis say you have to make the chont, and some rabbis themselves make it, okay? And this comes to part of a very strong and heated debate between the rabbinic sect in Judaism and the Karaites. Okay, the Karaites are the ones that go by the literal law of the Bible, and the Bible says, okay, you shall not kindle fire on Shabbat. Okay, so they don't use any kind of fire on Shabbat. Not that the rabbis light fire on Shabbat, but they use fire on Shabbat. Okay, do you see the difference? How do they use fire on Shabbat? They eat warm food on a fire, okay? Because you put this whole stew before Shabbat on a low flame fire. It goes on throughout the Shabbat as well. So it's something that they did before Shabbat is now continuing to go on. And the Karaites had told them, you are using fire on Shabbat. You are obstructing the Jewish law, and you are doing something that is forbidden in the Bible. And they said, no, we are not. Okay, we are using something that's been lit before Shabbat. So the Karaites said, but it says you will not, use the fire. So they said, no, that's not what it says. It says don't start a fire. So this very heated debate is not just an interpretation. It's really the essence of the Judaism as we know it, as opposed to the biblical Judaism, is if you take the law literally, because if you look very carefully at the Bible, or not even very carefully, the Karaites are correct. Okay, the Karaites are correct. You're not supposed to use fire or enjoy fire on a Shabbat, and they eat cold food on Shabbat. Okay, don't ever get an invitation to a Karaite home on Shabbat lunch. Okay, it's probably pretty bad. So the rabbi said we have a tradition. Okay, that's sort of like oral tradition that tells us that what the Bible says, it meant don't light the fire. Okay, but you could use a fire that's already up and running. That's why you can light Shabbat candles also. Okay, you can light Shabbat candles before and enjoy the light during Shabbat. The Karaites don't do that. They sit in the dark, okay, on Shabbat. They're very, very strict in that sense. So the rabbinic stream of Judaism, which is the Judaism that we have evolved from the time of the temple, is the one that says you have to eat it hot, because because if you don't eat it, you show you're supporting the Karaites, and you don't want to do that. So therefore, you have to eat chont on Shabbat. You have to eat warm food on Shabbat to show that our way is the correct way. And that's why many rabbis were actually engaged until today in making the chont. And I saw once like all these recipes that this rabbi does this, etc. So that's a lot about the food. Yeah.
How many Karaites are in Israel today?
That's a very good question. There are a few hundreds now, maybe a few thousands. The same with the Samarites, like the Shomronim, that are in the time of the Bible. We are talking about populations that were at the hundreds of thousands. Okay, there were like millions of Samarites and Karaites at a certain point in the Middle Ages. They were very strong in Egypt, and in other places in northern Africa. Some of them moved to Ukraine. I was in Ukraine and I saw their synagogue. Very interesting story. So they're also around Europe. Some of them made it there as well throughout Jewish history. By the way, this goes to also another custom, which is joint ovens. Okay, to keep a fire like this going the entire Shabbat, you need a good, strong oven. The Jewish community would build a big oven, okay, and everyone would bring their pot, and somehow some have some mark on it, and you would put it in the oven, and then on Shabbat lunch, the mothers would send the kids go get our pot, etc. And that was like, we have documentation of these ovens, these joint ovens throughout Jewish history. Okay, even in Poland, etc. It's very, very interesting to see that. And then, of course, rises the question: what happens if can I use an oven that is run by someone not Jewish, who might do the same thing? They might also warm up their, non-kosher food. Can we use it the same way? And there are different discussions, and some rabbis are strict, say no, you can't, because they're afraid maybe you will mix it, etc. And some rabbis are saying yes, you could use that oven of a Gentile as well, as long as you cover your food, so the odor and and all the the sweat maybe of the oven of the pig or whatever it is doesn't go into the Jewish pot. So there are different ways of looking at that. Sephardi and other customs, so we said, so the different ways of doing the chont. Eggs are always put in them as well, and then you get like nice brown eggs. And maybe one day we'll do a chont contest, right? Everyone will bring their own. A lot of synagogues in Jerusalem during the winter time, they do a contest like that. So you go to a synagogue, everyone brings their their thing, and there's a taste committee, and someone wins a prize.
Like a chili cook-off.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I was gonna say, how about lessons how to make it?
Yeah, that will be, I actually have a very good recipe that I combined the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi together. And the Sephardi secret is to add some dates. Dates. Yeah, because it's all very kind of like spicy and everything, and then but the dates give it like a interesting brownies taste.
Prunes or apricots.
After you eat that, you have to rest. Okay, resting on Shabbat is also a mitzvah. Okay, that's the acronym of Shabbat. Shin bet taf shena b'Shabbat tanug. Sleeping on Shabbat is a pleasure.
Shabbos snap.
Okay, Shabbos snap. Yeah, it's an expression, right?
Right.
There's a reason why there's an expression. Some rabbis say don't sleep on Shabbat because that's sort of like. If you sleep on Shabbat, you sleep the whole week, so it's like, no, you should be up and about. But most rabbis, say it's a mitzvah to sleep and rest on Shabbat. I did not include this here in writing, but having sex on Shabbat is also a important mitzvah. Okay, and the Talmud says that according to your profession. Okay, it's a saying to the men. Okay, according to your profession is the amount of time you need to be with your wife. If you travel, you're a businessman. You have to be once a month at home and do it with your wife. But if you're an ordinary person, I don't remember. I don't remember the exact saying. But on Shabbat, you have to do it on Shabbat. Okay, because that's sort of like the mitzvah when the family's together, when there's more time for one another, etc. Even more interesting is that some of the more extreme sects in Judaism, not the rabbinic sect, actually say that you should not have sex on Shabbat because that is sort of like doing work that is not permissible on Shabbat, And the rabbis say, no. This is part of like Onik Shabbat. This is like part of like having Shabbat as a day of, rest, spiritual, family, togetherness, etc. So they stress it on the other way. I don't want to get into too many details. We could, do that in a separate time, but that's sort of like the essence of it. Yeah.
Isn't there something in the Torah commanding a husband to have intercourse with his wife? He must have.
Yes. The when we will study about marriage, etc., there is an obligation to provide for the woman, including ongoing, intercourse. That's part of the duties. Okay, after we rest, there's mincha. Mincha is the second prayer of the day. And it's a much shorter one, but you read from the Torah on Shabbat as well. And what you read is next week's Torah portion. You're sort of like getting ready for it, because in the morning you read that week's portion. So in Mincha, you read the following week. And some kids have their bar bat mitzvah on Mincha because it's like a smaller service, it's shorter, more intimate. So that's also an interesting phenomena. And then there is Seudah Shlishit. Seudah Shlishit comes from the word Seudah is a meal, and Shlishit comes from the word Shalosh, from the number 3. Okay, and it's a very special, unique meal that's only done on Shabbat. Why is it only done on Shabbat? We might ask. We eat breakfast, lunch and supper, right? That's not how it used to be in old days, okay? They used to only have breakfast and dinner, okay? No lunch in between. Or they would have, they would actually not eat in the morning. They would just go out, work, and then have lunch, and then another, like a big lunch, and then like a smaller dinner. So Seudah Shlishit, it's considered the 15th meal of the week. There are 14 meals, right? 2 meals a day. So times 7, so that's 14. And the additional Seudah Shlishit is the special Seudah for Shabbat. So there will be special food, there'll be special tunes and melodies. Some people even say Kiddush over it, although it's not mandatory. Some people eat bread. Again, it's not mandatory, but you could do that. And it's considered like a very spiritual thing, because it's like also before Shabbat ends, so you're sort of like parting from Shabbat. So the music would be, the melodies would be more, like sad and spiritual, and like saying goodbye to Shabbat in that beautiful way. Yes.
Is Seudah and Seder in any way related, or are they completely separate roots and everything?
Yeah, Seder is more about like the order of thing, and Seudah is about the food. Okay. How do we end Shabbat? We end Shabbat with Havdalah. Okay. What is Havdalah? You see all the elements here of the wine, the spices, the candle, and the siddur, the prayer book. And Havdalah is really the ceremony to distinguish between the weekdays that are coming now and the holiness of Shabbat. We started it with fire by lighting Shabbat candles 25 hours before, okay? And we end it after the stars go out on 25 hours later. The Midrash actually says this very interesting story that the first person to ever do Havdalah was the first man in humanity, Adam. Okay, Adam and Eve, because Adam and Eve were born when? On the 6th day, right? Man and woman were born according to tradition on the 6th day, and for the first night of their lives, okay, a miracle happened and the sun did not go down. And on Saturday night, the sun went down and it was like complete dark in the world. And God pleaded to, Adam pleaded to God to light the darkness for him. And God told him, here are two stones. You see these two stones? Okay, use them. God sort of like told him there's a secret in that. And he took these two stones and he went, he rubbed them against each other, and a spark came out and started a fire. So it really symbolizes that this is sort of like the creation of the world was done by God, but to to make it better or to make it more, it's like God, a man needs to enter into partnership with God and also produce light and fire, okay? Because God is not going to sit down and barbecue, for man, or if he gives him grain, man has to do, bread. If he gives him grapes, man has to do wine, okay, etc., etc. So this is like the Saturday night symbolizes the beginning of the work days, so that's why it starts with fire, because only with fire can you create in this world. So there are different. So Havdalah is, as I said, it has special blessings. There's a special blessing on the wine, and then you basically start with these 8 verses that you say, these 8 verses that have God's name in it. And after that, you pick up the wine glass, and you see the wine glass is overflowing. So it's like it needs to overflow. It represents bountifulness, that we are asking God to make us a bountiful week of success at work, etc. And you say a blessing on the wine, Borei Pri Hagafen. Then you say a blessing on the spices. Okay, this is like a nice vessel to keep the spices inside. The spices have to have a good smell, like cinnamon sticks or cloves, anything like that good like that. The Sephardi actually use, they have like bushes of different herbs that smell very good, and they go and they pick it and they actually smell. So they have a different blessing that they say, which is very interesting. And the reason you do that is sort of like that smell of Shabbat is you inhale the good smell of the plant. That's the good smell of Shabbat. And now I'm going to take it with me for the rest of the week. I'm sort of like going to enjoy that and have that strength, that spiritual strengthening of Shabbat. I'm taking it with me for the rest of the week. And then we do the candle. Okay, we raise the candle and we say the blessing, Borei Meorei Ha'esh, which God that creates light, and then we go like this in front of the light. Have you ever seen that? Okay, and we sort of like separate. We have light on this part and darkness on this part, and that is they're different sort of like reasons to do that, and that's really to separate between the light and the darkness, the light and the darkness that's in the world, the light and the darkness that's within us. Okay, and also, the light of Shabbat and sort of like the rest of the week, which doesn't have that light of Shabbat. So there are different reasons why we hold it like this. And yeah. And then we say the blessing on the Havdalah itself, which is to separate between Shabbat and the 6 days, separate between the Jews that are obligated to observe the Shabbat and all the other nations, to separate between light and darkness, etc. So that signifies the Havdalah, and then you turn off, and then you turn off the candle inside the wine. So you see the wine here. It's that's how you turn it off. And then there are different customs. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You sort of like take the fingers, okay, and dipped in the wine and the wax, okay, and then you sort of like you put it here, or you put it here. Has anyone ever seen that?
Yes.
Okay, and or you also put it here in the pockets, and it symbolizes like different things. It's like, may we have a bountiful week of like smarts, like that our brains work well, or here, like that we hear well, or like our pockets filled, with money, that we do well in business. So there's different like customs that have become interesting in different communities. I actually wanted to share.
The Havdalah candle looks different from any other candles.
Right. You're supposed to light more than one wax.
It's braided.
Yeah, it's braided
Yeah.
because it needs to be like a strong light, okay? That everyone knows like Shabbat is over. It's not just a candle to light, it's a candle to sort of like symbolize that Shabbat is over, okay? I want to show you these two very nice movies. Hold on a second. How are we gonna do this? Wait.
The trial of the decade involved,
That's not good. I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna start this in a different browser. And that's how we can do it. Okay. Let's go here. What do you want from me? Okay. Elizabeth, could you see the video here?
No, I just still see the screen with the picture on it. Now I see you.
Okay, do you see it now?
It's low. Yes, I do. I'm good.
The trial of the decade involved, a guy named Puff Daddy, who's now P. Diddy. His name is Sean.
Right, can you hear it, Elizabeth?
Yep, I'm good.
The trial of the decade.
Okay, listen.
15 years ago, the trial of the decade involved, a guy named Puff Daddy, who's now P. Diddy. His name is Sean Combs. But he and Jennifer Lopez were involved in a shooting in a nightclub in New York. It was the trial of the decade. Because 15 years ago, they were the two hottest performers in America, and they were together, and there were hundreds and hundreds of media people following the case every day. And I meet this guy for the first time, and the late Johnny Cochran introduces me to him, and people think he's just a rapper. He employs 600 people. He's an industry. He's a very impressive man, even 15 years ago. and we meet. And, you know, I'm a short, white Jewish guy, and his whole entourage is not. And he wants me to be his lawyer. And he says to me, first thing you got to do is you got to give me all your numbers. Your home number, your cell number, your office number, and you got to be available 24/7. I said to him 24/6. So he says 24/7. Everybody who works for me is available 24/7. I said, listen, I just want to get this out of the way now because I'm the right guy for this case, I think. But you got to understand something. I observe the Sabbath. And absent a real emergency, I'm not going to answer the phone. He says, well, how are you going to know if it's a real emergency? I says, I have a staff. I have Gentile people who work for me. Here's how it works. If it's a real emergency and if it involves the kind of crisis that allows me in my own mind to justify violating the Sabbath, they send me a fax. I read it. If I agree, I'll pick up the phone. But if the phone rings, I'm not going to answer it. So he says, no, 24/7. I said 24/6. Don't call me Friday night, and if it's important, I'll give you people to call. He says, no, it's you. I said, okay, but remember, not Friday night. So now it's Friday night. And the phone starts to ring. Now, I know it's not an emergency because I have this all set up with my staff. When you represent someone like that, occasionally there's an emergency. There's no fax, and it's it's a blocked number, so I know it's coming from him. And the phone rings like 1,000 times. You know, most people would hang up after like 50 times. The phone rings like 1,000 times, and I know in my heart that he's testing me, and I don't answer the phone. Saturday night, I call him. I said, were you trying to reach me Friday night? He said, yeah, I was. I said, was it an emergency? He said, no. I said, well, I'm sorry I didn't answer the phone. He says, don't be sorry. He said, I won 10 grand. I said, excuse me? He says, yeah, I bet my homies that you wouldn't pick up the phone.
Okay, that's a great.
There's one simple hearing.
Okay, so that was one video I wanted to show you, and about Shabbat observance and and Havdalah and everything.
Excuse me, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Who was talking?
I know this big shot lawyer. I could find out later on. This big shot lawyer in New York. The other. Okay, is Debbie Friedman. Have you heard of Debbie Friedman? Debbie Friedman is one of the late Debbie Friedman, a wonderful woman, wrote this very special melody for Havdalah. Okay, hold on, let me share this so the people here on the screen could also watch it. Okay, do you see it now on the big screen?
Yep.
Okay, let's just hide the, okay. And Debbie Friedman writes this very beautiful melody for Havdalah, okay? And she's a Reformed Jew, but she's very good. I think she was here in the West Coast, right? And she's so good that the conservative movement is starting to adopt her tunes as well, and bring them into services. We sing like Mi Sheberach Mimotenu, right, for the healing of people, etc. And then she writes this very nice tune for Havdalah. Has anyone heard her tune for Havdalah? Okay, it goes like. Okay, and then it goes like, I remember in the 90s already in Camp Ramah, we would sing that, and generations grew up on this tune, and then it doesn't just end with the conservative and reform movement, it goes on to the Orthodox and even the Haredi, but they don't know that it's written by a reform Jew, okay, a reform, yeah, okay, and then the whole world apparently is singing this, And a friend of mine was in Europe in a conference, and and everyone has their own services, etc. And at the end of Shabbat, the Haredi group was having Havdalah, and they were singing this tune. And she came over to them, and she's a Reform rabbi, this friend of mine, and she asked them, "Where's this beautiful tune from?" She knows where it's from, but she was like, she wanted to see if they would acknowledge. So she said, they said, "This is a very ancient tune. It's been going on in Jewish tradition, written by Rabbi Nachman of Braslav, no less, the great rabbi of Rabbi Nachman of Braslav." So this is, so I'm sure, Debbie Friedman is probably, happy that, her tune is attributed even to Rabbi Nachman of Braslav. And after she passed away, very sad, in her early 60s from a terrible disease, but she really influenced a lot of people. And someone did something really beautiful. If you go on YouTube and you do Havdalah, this is the tune you get, and you see groups all over the world doing Havdalah with her tune. Because don't forget, because it's Havdalah, Orthodox should also videotape it. Okay, because if it was during Shabbat, you can't. But because it's after Shabbat, so you can videotape yourself, even if you're an observant Jew. So here we have Havdalahs from all over the world by all different kind of groups singing Debbie Friedman's Havdalah combined. So it's a really beautiful moving video clip. Maybe we can even turn down the lights. And I invite you to enjoy Havdalah. And to also encourage you to do Havdalah at home.
Borei pari hagafen la la la.
Nice, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, really very, very special. Every time I watch this movie, I'm really,
Beautiful.
yeah, so you could turn on the
There's a
lights
title to that.
again.
You know what it's called?
What?
We Are One.
We Are One. Beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful. This is really, you see how the whole Jewish world is able to unite, through this like beautiful mitzvah and melody, bringing all parts of it together. And I think, from if you ask me personally, from Shabbat, this is, I love Friday night Shabbat services and dinner and Havdalah. Those are my favorite parts of Shabbat. Shabbat services are a little bit long, and they're in the morning, when people want to sleep sometimes. So it's more of a challenge, I think, in the Jewish tradition. But for me, these are my favorite ones. To conclude, there's one more things that happens on Shabbat, which is actually after Shabbat, okay? And this is called Melave Malka, okay? Malka is a queen, and Melave is to escort. So we're escorting the queen of Shabbat, right? Because we said Shabbat Malka, we said when we enter Shabbat, we treat her like a queen, boy kala. This is sort of like the fourth meal. It's not an obligatory meal, especially if you ate the whole Shabbat and you want to start dieting, okay? But we're sort of like escorting the queen out on her way out, and musical performances are all over the world with that, which is very interesting. And there is a meal sometimes. So it's like a musical show together with meals. Hasidics were very big on that. It's not in Sephardi Judaism. I have not heard of it, but it was a big thing there as well. So this really concludes all our lectures about Shabbat. If there are any questions about Shabbat, okay.